We all know Anne Boleyn and Catherine of Aragon, but what about the queens whose names slipped out of our collective memory? The women who guided kings, steered nations, and shaped England in ways most people never learn about? Their influence was real, their impact lasting, yet their stories were pushed aside. This isn't just a look beyond two famous Tudor figures. It's a chance to bring forward the names of royal consorts who deserve to be remembered. Ready to meet the Queen's history left behind? Welcome to my channel Words of Time, and here we explore the stories that history tried to hide, the lives that shaped nations even when the record tried to silence them. The long arc of English history is often shaped in our minds by a few familiar figures whose stories have been told so many times that they eclipse nearly everyone around them. When people think of queens in England, they usually recall the dramatic fall of Anne Boleyn or the steady resolve of Catherine of Aragon. Their lives hold strong places in the cultural imagination, shaped by court intrigue, religious conflict, and the rise of a new dynasty. Yet when we limit our focus to these well-known names, we overlook a deeper and far richer story. England was shaped by a long line of royal partners whose influence touched politics, religion, diplomacy, culture, and daily life. Some were celebrated during their own lifetimes, while others worked in quiet ways that left subtle yet lasting marks on the kingdom. Many of their contributions were forgotten or pushed aside in later accounts, often written by chroniclers who valued battles and kings more than the patience, strategy, and adaptability required to survive royal life. These women deserve attention not simply to fill gaps in the record, but because they reveal the many layers of power that shaped England long before and long after the Tudor age. The idea of a consort suggests a figure who stands slightly behind the monarch, one whose authority depends on marriage rather than birth or conquest. Yet consorts acted in ways that stretched far beyond that limited image. They managed households that were political centers, negotiated peace between rival factions, and raised future rulers whose views were shaped by the lessons and beliefs they absorbed at home. Some acted as regents when the king was abroad or too young to govern, while others advised more quietly, leaving their imprint through trusted counselors, patronage, or the cultivation of alliances. These roles required judgment and restraint, as well as a keen understanding of how to use position without appearing to overstep it. The result was a form of influence that worked through relationships, persuasion, and example. If we look back to the early medieval period, we find consorts who helped introduce new religious practices, strengthen connections with Europe, and calm disputes within the realm. Their efforts might not appear in military chronicles, but they mattered to the daily life of the kingdom. When Christianity spread across England, royal wives often stood at the center of this transformation. Their marriages linked ruling families across regions, and their personal commitments sometimes influenced whether their husbands accepted new beliefs. These early queens had to navigate households that included both old pagan customs and emerging Christian rites. Their ability to balance these forces helped guide England toward a future shaped by the Church. Many early monastic communities received land and protection through the influence of royal women who believed in the value of literacy, worship, and community. This legacy continued across centuries, shaping the religious landscape long before later conflicts fractured it. As the medieval period unfolded, queens became important figures in diplomacy. Marriages between ruling houses served as strategic tools to build peace or strengthen claims to disputed lands. A consort who came from a foreign court brought knowledge of customs, languages, and political expectations that shaped a new environment. She acted as a bridge between realms, easing tension or opening paths for trade and alliances. Chroniclers sometimes criticized foreign queens when disputes arose, but these judgments often overlooked the complexity of their duties. They had to honor the expectations of the English people while also maintaining ties to their families abroad, whose favor could prove useful in moments of conflict. Their letters, gifts, and household networks contributed to a wider European conversation, linking England to broader political currents. Some of the most overlooked consorts played significant roles in internal governance. When kings traveled for war or diplomacy, it fell to their partners to maintain order at home. Acting as regent required not only administrative skill but also the trust of both the court and the kingdom. A queen who managed troops, finances, or legal disputes demonstrated that her authority rested not only on marriage but on competence. These regencies also shaped how future generations viewed female power. Young princes and princesses who watched their mothers govern learned that leadership could come from many forms, even when later historians tried to downplay that reality. Patronage formed another layer of influence. Queens supported artists, scholars, and craftsmen whose work helped define the culture of the time. Their choices affected the development of architecture, fashion, literature, and religious art. A single commission could introduce a new style or technique to England, leaving a legacy visible in manuscripts, churches, or tapestries. These cultural contributions shaped how the kingdom expressed identity and memory. Even when their names faded, the works they supported lived on as part of the national landscape. Beyond the formal structures of power, consorts shaped the personal dimensions of monarchy. They built alliances with noble families, influenced court appointments, and mediated conflicts within the household. Life in the royal court was full of tension, ambition, and shifting loyalties. A queen who managed these pressures with tact could help maintain stability. Her ability to soothe disputes or foster cooperation often mattered more than official titles. Marriages, friendships, and favors created networks that shaped political decisions in ways that rarely appeared in official documents. These quieter forms of influence reveal how deeply embedded a consort could be in the functioning of the realm. The later medieval period and the approach of the Tudor age bring forward women whose reputations were shaped by turbulent times. Political unrest, succession struggles, and shifting loyalties created environments where royal partners had to navigate danger as well as opportunity. Some acted with boldness when circumstances demanded it. Others survived by adopting a careful and measured approach that protected their families even when events spiraled out of control. Their strategies shaped the outcomes of wars and negotiations, even if chroniclers credited victories only to kings or generals. When the Tudor dynasty rose, the personalities of its kings drew strong attention. This era was marked by religious upheaval, diplomatic tension, and the symbolic power of marriage. Queens of this period are often remembered for dramatic episodes, yet many aspects of their work remain overshadowed. They managed households that were enormous economic centers, oversaw the education of royal children, and supported humanist scholars who brought new ideas into England. Their patronage shaped the spread of learning and the arts. Their diplomacy helped maintain connections with European courts during a time when the kingdom was redefining its religious identity. Though later stories often reduce them to romantic tragedy or political friction, these women shaped policy in ways that affected generations. Looking beyond the Tudor line, the early modern period brought new challenges and expectations. The growth of parliamentary power, religious reform, and expanding global connections created a different landscape for consorts. Queens now had to navigate not only court politics but also public expectations shaped by sermons, pamphlets, and foreign commentary. Their conduct and choices could influence national debates about virtue, authority, and loyalty. Many foreign-born queens faced suspicion when tensions with their home countries arose, yet they also used their international links to improve trade, encourage cultural exchange, and support diplomatic ties. Their households became spaces where ideas moved across borders, influencing fashion, taste, and intellectual life. Some queens played important roles in shaping how monarchy adapted to changing times. Their involvement in charity helped redefine the image of the crown. Support for hospitals, schools, and relief efforts made the royal family appear more accessible and compassionate. These charitable efforts had practical effects as well. They improved care for the poor, supported the work of midwives and physicians, and funded projects that strengthened local communities. Through this work, consorts helped shape the moral expectations placed on rulers. Their example influenced how future queens approached public service. The political environment of the 17th century placed new pressure on royal partners. Civil conflict, shifting religious alliances, and disputes over succession created a climate where any misstep could become a flashpoint. Some consorts played quiet yet steady roles in supporting the monarchy during this turbulence. Their ability to provide counsel, hold families together, or act as mediators affected the stability of the realm. Others demonstrated personal courage during moments of crisis, protecting their children, their households, or important documents. These actions, though sometimes recorded in private letters or diaries, shaped significant events. In the 18th century, as England expanded its global influence and developed new economic systems, queens continued to shape cultural and political life. They influenced the arts through patronage of musicians, painters, and writers. Their tastes helped define the elegance of the period, and their interest in moral improvement inspired new institutions that promoted education and refined social behavior. Court events and ceremonies became important ways to display national identity, and consorts played central roles in these traditions. Their presence helped shape public perception of monarchy in an age when print culture expanded the spread of news and opinion. During the 19th century, the presence and character of a queen or queen consort carried strong symbolic weight. Industrialization, social reform, and political change created new expectations. A consort who demonstrated compassion and stability helped reassure a population facing rapid transformation. Her engagement with charitable causes, including orphanages, hospitals, and social welfare programs, shaped public views of the royal family. These efforts were more than ceremonial. They created networks of support and improvement that influenced social policy. They also helped redefine the role of a royal partner as one grounded in service rather than solely in ceremony. As the 20th century unfolded, the monarchy faced new forms of scrutiny. Media coverage, modern politics, and global conflict created environments that demanded adaptability. Consorts in this period played vital roles in supporting national morale and unity. Their visits to hospitals, factories, schools, and military centers helped connect the royal family with citizens across the country. Their ability to offer comfort, encouragement, and a sense of continuity during times of war and hardship mattered deeply. They helped shape the public image of the crown as a symbol of resilience. Their influence extended beyond ceremonial duties, touching matters of national spirit. Across these centuries, the work of consorts shows that power does not always take the form of commanding armies or issuing decrees. It can arise from endurance, communication, persuasion, and the ability to hold families and courts together during conflict. It can come from nurturing future rulers whose decisions will shape generations. It can emerge through cultural patronage that defines a nation's identity. It can take the form of compassion expressed through charity and service. These forms of influence often escape the attention of historians seeking dramatic events, yet they shape the character and direction of a country in profound ways. The stories of overlooked consorts also raise questions about how history is written. Traditional accounts often privileged the actions of kings because records were kept by those who valued military campaigns, laws, and political achievements. The quieter work of consorts was less likely to be recorded or was viewed as secondary. Yet the everyday functioning of the kingdom relied on these women in countless ways. Their stories remind us that history is not only made by those whose names appear in large letters. It is shaped by people whose actions unfold behind the scenes, supporting the structures that hold societies together. Exploring the lives of forgotten queens encourages a deeper understanding of how power works. Influence can be subtle. It can operate through relationships, culture, belief, and example. When we look beyond the well-known figures, we see a tapestry of lives that reveal more complex truths about England's past. Each consort lived within constraints, yet each found ways to navigate them. Their stories include courage, patience, intelligence, and resilience. They reflect the challenges faced by women who lived at the intersection of public expectation and private responsibility. Recognizing their contributions does not diminish the importance of the better-known figures. Instead, it completes the picture. England's history becomes richer when we include the voices and actions of those who shaped it in ways that were sometimes hidden but always significant. Their efforts helped guide the kingdom through moments of change and uncertainty. They shaped culture, strengthened alliances, and provided stability in times of turmoil. They influenced the moral and intellectual climate of their eras. Their legacy is woven into the nation's institutions, traditions, and stories, even if their names have faded. Looking back across these centuries reminds us that history is often more complex than popular memory suggests. The spotlight may fall on a few dramatic stories, but countless others lie just beyond its reach. When we explore those stories, we discover new ways to understand the development of England. We see how leadership takes many forms. We learn that influence can be steady and persistent rather than bold and sudden. We recognize that the fabric of a nation is woven from many hands. The forgotten consorts of England deserve renewed attention. Their influence shaped events large and small. Their lives illustrate the demands placed on those who stood beside rulers in every era. Their choices, whether made in public or in private, helped shape the direction of the kingdom. By understanding their contributions, we gain a fuller view of the past. We see that the history of England is not only a story of battles, laws, and succession, but also a story of homes, alliances, learning, faith, and resilience. When we expand our view beyond the familiar figures, we uncover a deeper and more human account of how the nation became what it is today. The story of overlooked consorts continues with the life of Matilda of Flanders, whose influence shaped the early Norman kingdom in ways that reached far beyond her celebrated husband. Her presence in the developing narrative of England shows how leadership can take forms that do not always appear in the loud accounts of conquest and war. When we shift our attention from the battlefield to the steady work of maintaining order, building networks of loyalty, and guiding a new political structure, Matilda becomes essential. Her life deepens the picture of how the kingdom evolved after the great upheaval that altered its language, law, and culture. She offers a clear example of a partner who worked with intelligence and resolve during a time when the new order faced uncertainty, suspicion, and long stretches of absence from its ruler. By exploring her story, we continue the thread of hidden influence that has shaped England, revealing how important it is to look behind familiar figures and discover the minds and hands that supported them. Matilda grew up in a world shaped by the growing power of her family in the Low Countries, where trade and diplomacy played central roles in daily life. Her upbringing prepared her for the demands of ruling households, directing resources, and acting as a cultural bridge between regions. This background gave her a steady sense of how political systems functioned and how alliances could be formed or strengthened. When she became the partner of William, her experience and intelligence positioned her as more than a symbolic figure. She entered a marriage shaped by ambition and the need to manage a complex network of nobles, warriors, and clerics. Her role required a calm understanding of how to navigate the fierce loyalties and rivalries that surrounded William, who depended on her insight and stability. Her influence developed long before the invasion that changed the fate of England. In Normandy, she served as a key figure in consolidating William's rule. Many in the region questioned the young duke's claim, and his early years were marked by rebellion, plots, and shifting loyalties. Matilda's presence offered a sense of legitimacy and continuity at a time when the duchy needed both. She built relationships within Norman society by cultivating respect among powerful families. Her status helped soften tensions, and her judgment aided William as he worked to secure his authority. Her household became a center of influence where decisions took shape not through loud displays of force but through conversations, counsel, and the subtle work of managing ties among nobles who needed reassurance as much as discipline. When the conquest of England began, the focus of later accounts naturally fell on the clashes that marked the transition from one ruling group to another. Yet the establishment of a new system required far more than success on the battlefield. Once William began to shape the new kingdom, he depended heavily on Matilda to maintain order in Normandy and later to support the governance of England itself. Her ability to act independently during his long absences made her an essential partner. Many rulers relied on regents who worked with limited scope, but Matilda governed with a firm grasp of the political landscape. She issued charters, made decisions about land disputes, and negotiated with nobles whose loyalty could not be taken for granted. These actions reveal her as a leader who understood both the authority and responsibility that came with her position. Her regency shows how quietly powerful a consort could be. William trusted her judgment enough to leave her in charge of the duchy, knowing that her decisions would support his broader goals. She demonstrated not only administrative skill but also a steady temperament that balanced firmness with fairness. She worked to maintain morale and stability in Normandy, knowing that unrest there would weaken William's efforts abroad. Managing the duchy required attention to taxation, military preparation, legal disputes, and church relations. Her ability to navigate these matters shows a deep understanding of how governance worked at every level, from the management of estates to the broader demands of maintaining order among competing families. When she traveled to England, she participated directly in shaping the new kingdom. She witnessed the creation of foundations that would influence English society for long periods. Her patronage supported churches and monasteries that became centers of learning and culture. These religious houses helped preserve texts, train clerics, and offer guidance to communities navigating the shift from Anglo-Saxon to Norman rule. Through her support of these institutions, Matilda shaped the spiritual and intellectual direction of the developing kingdom. Patronage was one of the most powerful tools available to queens, and she used it with purpose. Her choices helped guide how culture evolved, how education developed, and how religious leaders interacted with the crown. Her political skill also appeared in her ability to ease tensions between Norman and English communities. After the invasion, many viewed the newcomers with suspicion or resentment. Matilda's presence offered a more approachable figure who could communicate goodwill without appearing weak. Her ability to connect with people across cultural lines helped soften the hard edges of conquest. Even small gestures could carry great weight during times of upheaval, and Matilda understood this well. She encouraged acts of generosity and supported those who needed assurance that the new rulers would treat them with respect. Stories from later centuries suggest that she showed kindness to English nobles and families affected by the transition. While some of these accounts may include elements of legend, they reflect a broader truth about her role as a calming presence. Her influence on the royal family also shaped the future of England. She guided her children's education, ensuring that they learned not only the duties of leadership but also the values that would support responsible rule. Her children would go on to play significant roles in the history of both Normandy and England. Their upbringing in a household that valued piety, learning, and diplomacy affected their conduct as leaders. Though William's military and administrative skill shaped the structure of the kingdom, Matilda's guidance helped shape the character of those who inherited it. Her influence extended across generations, woven into the decisions her children made as they navigated their own political challenges. Matilda's contributions show how deeply intertwined the roles of consort and ruler could be. Her authority as a regent was not a symbolic gesture but a practical necessity grounded in trust and competence. The early Norman kingdom needed stability during periods when William focused on military efforts or political negotiations. Her ability to manage the duchy without creating unrest helped ensure that William could act without fear of rebellion at home. Her steady governance supported his ambitions, making the broader project of ruling two regions possible. This balanced partnership reveals a deeper truth about leadership. Even the most forceful rulers depend on the presence of someone who can maintain order behind the scenes. Her work also highlights the importance of diplomatic skill. She managed relationships with the church, which held immense influence in the early medieval world. She supported religious leaders and ensured that the crown's relations with important ecclesiastical figures remained stable. This helped William maintain legitimacy and secure support during periods of conflict. Her understanding of how faith and politics intertwined allowed her to act as a stabilizing force at a time when religious endorsement carried great weight. Her ability to foster strong ties with abbeys and churches strengthened the sense of moral order within the kingdom. Her patronage extended to the arts as well. She encouraged craftsmanship, needlework, and artistic creation, shaping the aesthetic culture of the Norman court. Works produced during her lifetime display both skill and symbolic depth. They show how a queen could influence the visual expression of a kingdom's identity. Through these acts of support, she helped shape the cultural landscape of the New England, leaving a legacy that endured long after her lifetime. These cultural investments reveal another aspect of leadership not always recognized. They strengthen the sense of unity and shared identity among people who come from different backgrounds. Matilda's relationship with William was shaped by mutual respect and a shared commitment to stabilizing their holdings. While he was often portrayed as a stern and imposing figure, their partnership reveals a more complex dynamic. William trusted Matilda to act independently, and she proved worthy of that trust. Their marriage, though surrounded by politics, also carried genuine loyalty. Their letters and recorded actions show an attachment built on understanding, shared purpose, and the challenges they face together. This partnership stands as an example of how a consort's influence can support not only political goals but also the emotional foundation of leadership. Her death marked a shift in the tone of William's later years. Accounts suggest that he mourned her deeply, showing how central she had been to his life and his rule. Without her steady presence, he faced the pressures of leadership with less support, and the tensions among their sons grew more complicated. Her absence left a gap in the delicate balance she had helped maintain. The unrest that followed in later years shows how valued her influence had been. Her ability to moderate disputes within the family and manage the duchy had been essential to the stability of both Normandy and England. Her legacy shows that the foundations of Norman England were built not only by soldiers and lawmakers, but also by the patient work of a woman who understood the complexities of leadership. Her patronage shaped the cultural and spiritual world of the new kingdom. Her administrative skill supported the ambitions of a ruler whose achievements depended on her steady hand. Her diplomatic actions eased the transition from Anglo-Saxon rule to Norman governance. Her guidance shaped the next generation of leaders. When historians overlook her work, they lose a vital part of the story of how England became a unified and organized kingdom capable of weathering later storms. Matilda's life also invites reflection on how stories are preserved and told. The bold actions of conquerors often overshadow the quieter but equally important work of those who support them. Matilda's contributions were deeply embedded in the daily functioning of the duchy and the kingdom. Her decisions shaped the lives of countless people during a period of great upheaval. Her wisdom guided the formation of institutions that endured for centuries. Her patience supported a ruler who relied on her steadiness. These acts, though less dramatic than the clash of armies, helped shape the long-term development of England. By recognizing her influence, we gain a fuller understanding of the early Norman kingdom. We see how a consort could be a partner rather than a simple figure at court. We understand how leadership often depends on cooperation, trust, and the shared effort of individuals whose work is not always visible in the historical record. Matilda's life continues the broader theme of forgotten queens whose influence shaped England in ways that deserve attention. Her story adds depth to the fabric of English history, showing how the kingdom rested on the combined strength of both the ruler who changed it through force and the partner who shaped it through steadiness, clarity, and resolve. As we continue to explore the stories of consorts across the centuries, Matilda's life offers a strong example of the power that emerges from intelligence, patience, and effective governance. She stands among the many women whose influence supported the shifting structures of the kingdom. Her legacy lives on in the institutions she nurtured, the stability she helped maintain, and the cultural developments she encouraged. She remains a testament to the truth that the shaping of a nation depends not only on those who lead in battle but also on those who guide, support, and govern with quiet strength. The life of Eleanor of Provence continues the long thread of hidden influence that began with the earlier consorts whose stories shaped England in ways that popular memory often fails to acknowledge. Her presence at the English court during the reign of her husband created an environment where diplomacy, culture, and political strategy blended into a single force that altered the course of the kingdom. To understand her work, it helps to remember the world described in the earlier sections, where queens used intelligence, patience, and strategic awareness to guide a realm that often overlooked their contributions. Eleanor stepped into a court marked by tension, ambition, and shifting alliances. She brought with her a blend of sharp political sense, artistic insight, and the ability to manage both personal and public matters with a clarity that made her more than a symbolic consort. Her arrival strengthened the cultural and diplomatic ties that connected England with the continent, and her actions revealed how a queen could shape a kingdom through persuasion, learning, and resolve. Her early years in Provence prepared her for the demands she would face in England. Her family had long connections to European courts, where conversations about poetry, faith, learning, and politics blended into daily life. This environment exposed her to a level of refinement and cultural sophistication that would later form the basis of her influence. She learned how alliances were forged, how disputes were eased, and how marriages could bind distant regions in a shared network of loyalty. Her education included the arts, languages, and the observation of courtly behavior. These experiences shaped her into an individual capable of navigating the complexities of the English realm, which required not only diplomacy but also the ability to read character, anticipate conflict, and recognize opportunity. When she married Henry, she entered a court already marked by strong personalities, long-standing grudges, and the challenge of managing a realm that spanned multiple regions. Tensions simmered between powerful nobles, while trade and religious movements brought new pressures to the kingdom. At the same time, Henry's own temperament required a partner who could balance his idealism with practical solutions. Eleanor quickly realized that to support him effectively, she needed to work not from the shadows but through a clear understanding of how influence flowed at court. She established networks of advisors, artists, clerics, and diplomats whose loyalty to her strengthened the position of the crown. Her ability to read the motives of others allowed her to play a significant part in shaping decisions that affected both the domestic sphere and foreign policy. One of her most significant contributions involved the use of marriage as a diplomatic tool. She understood that alliances could be reinforced through thoughtful unions, and she worked tirelessly to support matches that would secure peace or strengthen England's political standing. Her involvement in arranging these unions extended beyond simple suggestions. She communicated with foreign courts, coordinated with clerics who oversaw the legality of matches, and managed the delicate feelings of nobles whose family interests were often at stake. Through these efforts, she acted as a stabilizing force in a political landscape where distrust and rivalry threatened to upset the balance of power. Her work in this sphere was crucial, yet later narratives often credited the king alone, overlooking the skill and strategic understanding she brought to the process. Her influence on the cultural life of England was equally profound. She introduced a wave of Provençal and French styles that transformed the court into a center of refinement. She encouraged the spread of poetry, music, and architectural innovation, helping to blend English tradition with continental trends in ways that enriched the cultural identity of the realm. Her patronage supported artists, scholars, and craftsmen who brought with them a fluency in ideas and techniques that had been slower to reach England. She oversaw the decoration of royal residences, the design of chapels, and the presentation of courtly entertainments. These acts were not frivolous. Culture served as a form of soft power that announced the sophistication of the crown, strengthened diplomatic relationships, and enhanced the prestige of the kingdom. One of her most enduring influences came from her support of learning. She encouraged the education of children at court, promoted literacy among women, and supported scholars whose work bridged the gap between traditional teachings and new intellectual currents. Her interest in written culture helped cultivate an environment where books, manuscripts, and artistic expression held greater value. This support had long-term effects on the intellectual development of the kingdom. It enriched the education of future rulers, contributed to the preservation of religious and historical texts, and strengthened the bonds between the crown and the church. Eleanor's role in the political life of the kingdom deepened as conflict grew. The reign of Henry was marked by tension between the crown and the nobility, who resented the king's close ties to foreign advisors and his ongoing financial demands. Disputes grew sharper as the nobles sought to limit royal power. Eleanor watched these events unfold with a clear sense of the danger. She understood the importance of holding the court together and worked to mediate between factions, though her own family ties sometimes made her a target of resentment. She managed these pressures with remarkable resolve, even as criticism grew louder and more personal. Her involvement in political matters became most visible during the periods when she acted as regent. When Henry traveled or faced constraints, Eleanor took on the responsibilities of governance with seriousness and competence. She made decisions regarding taxation, justice, and diplomatic correspondence. She oversaw the management of the royal household and the distribution of resources. Acting as regent required her to balance firmness with diplomacy. She had to maintain loyalty among nobles whose support was essential, while also protecting the interests of the crown against growing unrest. Her regency showed that she possessed not only cultural and diplomatic skill but also a firm grasp of administrative power. The most dramatic challenge of her life came during the conflict known as the baronial movement, when leading nobles rose against the king in an effort to impose new limits on royal authority. The dispute escalated into open conflict, placing the royal family in real danger. During these turbulent years, Eleanor demonstrated remarkable courage and strategic insight. She organized efforts to defend the crown's interests, coordinated support from abroad, and did not hesitate to take direct action. One account describes her leading forces by arranging ships and securing passage for troops who would aid the king. Though she did not wield a sword herself, her leadership during this crisis revealed a remarkable determination. Her experiences during the rebellion also exposed the depth of hostility that could be directed at a queen who played an active political role. At one point, a crowd in London attacked a barge as she attempted to travel along the river, an event that showed how charged the atmosphere had become. This violence reflected the anger of those who blamed her for the king's policies or resented her foreign background. Despite these dangers, she continued to act in support of the crown, showing that her loyalty and courage extended beyond the ceremonial aspects of queenship. Her endurance during these events added a layer of strength to her reputation, one that was often overlooked by accounts that later simplified her life. Her relationship with Henry was complex yet rooted in genuine affection. She supported him through times when his confidence faltered and offered counsel during moments of uncertainty. His trust in her grew stronger as their partnership deepened. While he often struggled with the practicalities of governance, she provided clarity and structure. Their partnership combined his sense of vision with her sense of organization. Though later stories sometimes portrayed her influence as overbearing, these accounts often came from critics who wanted to shift blame for political failures away from the king. A more balanced view shows that her support strengthened the crown and helped maintain continuity during periods of instability. Her later years reflected both triumph and sorrow. The loss of some of her children, the strain of political conflict, and the death of Henry affected her deeply. Yet she continued to work for the stability of the realm even after her husband's passing. She helped support the smooth transition of the crown to the next generation, ensuring that the kingdom did not plunge into renewed disorder. Her dedication to her family extended beyond her children to her grandchildren, whom she supported with affection and guidance. When she eventually retired to a religious house, she did so with a sense of reflection rather than defeat. Her retreat into a quieter life allowed her to focus on prayer, contemplation, and charitable work. Yet even in retirement, her presence remained influential. Visitors sought her wisdom, and her reputation for intelligence and steadiness followed her. Her final years show a woman who had given much to the kingdom and now sought peace without entirely stepping away from the world she had helped shape. Her legacy reflects a life of complexity, skill, and deep commitment. She shaped the cultural identity of the English court, enriched its artistic life, and supported its intellectual growth. She strengthened the connections between England and the continent. She acted as a diplomat, a mediator, a patron, and a strategist. She showed bravery during periods of conflict and steadiness during times of uncertainty. Her life expands the broader narrative of consorts whose work changed the kingdom in ways that deserve recognition. Eleanor's story, like those of the other women whose voices have been restored in this exploration, demonstrates how the strength of a realm depends on more than military victories or prominent rulers. The foundation of a stable kingdom often rests on the work of individuals who operate with patience, insight, and a deep understanding of how influence truly functions. Her life reveals the power of cultural transformation, the importance of diplomatic finesse, and the essential role of resilience in the face of opposition. By understanding her contributions, we gain a fuller picture of the forces that shaped England during a period of growth, tension, and change. She stands as an example of how a queen could be a creator of alliances, a guide for artistic expression, and a force of stability during conflict. Her story continues the theme of overlooked influence, showing how the shaping of a nation often depends on the strength and wisdom of those whose names may not appear first in historical memory but whose work resonates across centuries. Her life brings the narrative forward with clarity, linking her story with the consorts who came before and those who followed. She embodies the qualities that shaped the evolution of England: vision, intelligence, cultural understanding, and the courage to act in moments when silence would have been easier. In this way, Eleanor of Provence remains a powerful reminder that the full story of a kingdom lies not only in the deeds of kings but also in the steady work of the queens whose influence shaped the path of the realm in ways that still echo today. The story continues with Philippa of Hainault, whose life forms the next link in the long chain of consorts whose contributions shaped England even when their names faded behind the presence of powerful husbands. Her world followed the cultural refinement brought by Eleanor of Provence, yet it demanded a different form of strength. Where Eleanor worked amid shifting alliances and sharp political unrest, Philippa faced the pressure of a kingdom preparing for a long and uncertain conflict abroad while still developing its internal identity. Her influence grew not from dramatic displays but from a steady presence that blended mercy, careful management, and a deep understanding of how stability was built through compassion as much as through force. She entered a court defined by the ambitions of Edward III, but she shaped it through her own sense of responsibility, foresight, and quiet resilience. Philippa came from a region where trade, commerce, and cross-cultural ties formed the heart of daily life. Hainault was known for its textile production and market influence, and she grew up in an environment that valued practical skill alongside courtly learning. This background prepared her in subtle ways for the role she would later play in England. Her early education exposed her to the balance between economic strength and political stability, and she learned how leaders relied on trade networks to support their power. She also grew up observing how families built influence across regions by maintaining reliable relationships with merchants, town leaders, and artisans. These lessons shaped her approach as she entered a kingdom where economic growth could influence political success just as strongly as military victory. When she arrived in England, she encountered a court still influenced by earlier traditions yet ready for change. The kingdom was expanding its connections abroad, shaping its identity through both war and commerce. The early years of her marriage saw the rise of tension with France and the slow formation of what would become a protracted conflict. Yet within this landscape, Philippa established herself as a calming presence. Her demeanor, warmth, and sense of fairness earned her respect from nobles, townspeople, and even those who approached the court with petitions for justice. Her popularity was not the result of spectacle. It developed from her willingness to listen, her steady companionship to her husband, and her ability to act in ways that reflected the needs of the kingdom rather than the desires of a single court faction. Her role as a partner to Edward III reveals a balance between personalities. Edward was energetic, ambitious, and ready to prove his strength through battle. Philippa offered steadiness, understanding, and a form of grounded judgment that helped support his aims while also tempering the more impulsive aspects of his rule. She learned how to influence decisions not through confrontation but through reason, patience, and a clear grasp of how actions taken at the top could echo across the kingdom. These qualities made her a central figure in the daily life of the court, which relied on her to maintain harmony among nobles whose loyalties were essential for military campaigns abroad. Her influence appeared most clearly in the economic sphere, where she showed an understanding of commerce that shaped England's prosperity during her lifetime. She recognized the importance of the wool trade, which connected the kingdom to markets across the Low Countries. This trade formed the backbone of English wealth, and she used her connections to strengthen it. Her patronage supported merchants, encouraged stable production, and created confidence among trading partners abroad. She made investments that supported the growth of the cloth industry, which later became one of the most influential sectors in the kingdom's economy. Through these acts, she helped create conditions for increased revenue, stronger trade ties, and social stability. Her understanding of finance was not abstract. It was grounded in long experience with families who built influence through cooperative work between noble households and commercial communities. Her patronage also extended to the development of towns. She supported markets, fair systems, and civic projects that contributed to the prosperity of urban centers. This support helped create opportunities for artisans and merchants, which in turn strengthened the connection between the crown and the growing commercial class. By recognizing the value of these partnerships, Philippa helped shape a more modern England, one that saw the importance of trade and craftsmanship in daily life. Her influence helped shift the kingdom toward a future where prosperity depended not only on land but also on industry, commerce, and the skill of its workers. While her economic contributions built long-term stability, her acts of compassion became the most celebrated part of her reputation. These moments formed the core of her popularity and revealed her deep understanding of how mercy could strengthen a realm. One of the most often recalled events of her life involved her plea on behalf of a group of burghers whose lives hung in the balance after a siege. She approached the king with a request grounded in moral clarity and a desire to heal the wounds of conflict. Her words persuaded him to spare the men, an act that resonated across kingdoms. This act of mercy was not only symbolic. It helped build trust, eased tension between conquered communities and the crown, and reminded the realm that justice could be tempered with humanity. Her compassion strengthened Edward's authority by associating his rule with fairness rather than only with force. Her influence on diplomacy extended beyond individual gestures. She used her position to calm disputes between nobles, families, and foreign powers. Her manner of negotiation relied on listening, empathy, and a clear sense of long-term consequence. She understood that peace required patience and that gestures of goodwill could carry political weight. During the early stages of the long conflict with France, she helped ease tensions that could have escalated into larger confrontations. Her letters, presence at negotiations, and engagement with envoys helped shape an environment in which communication remained possible even in moments of rising hostility. Philippa also played a significant role in supporting military efforts, not through aggression but through the practical work that made campaigns possible. She oversaw supplies, managed resources, and helped provide for the families of men who left for battle. She understood how the burden of war affected towns, villages, and households. Her visits to camps, hospitals, and ports offered comfort and showed a level of personal concern that strengthened morale. Her presence reminded soldiers that their sacrifices were recognized and that their well-being mattered to the crown. These actions revealed a form of leadership grounded in empathy and responsibility rather than spectacle. Her political skill also became evident when she acted as regent during the king's absences. In these moments, she assumed responsibility for the governance of the kingdom. She oversaw justice, managed finances, and maintained order among nobles who were often restless when the king was not present. Her regency demonstrated that she possessed a clear understanding of how to balance authority with diplomacy. She respected the structures of governance while also making necessary decisions to protect the realm. Her effectiveness during these periods showed that consorts could govern with the same steadiness and clarity as monarchs, even if their work received less recognition. Her work with the royal children formed another essential part of her legacy. She ensured that they received an education grounded not only in the skills of leadership but also in values of mercy, responsibility, and cultural awareness. Her children grew up watching her acts of compassion, her attention to the needs of the people, and her dedication to stability. These lessons shaped their outlook and influenced their approach to politics and family. Her household became a center of learning, hospitality, and cultural exchange. It welcomed visitors from across Europe, creating an environment where ideas circulated freely. This atmosphere enriched the court, strengthened diplomatic networks, and prepared the next generation for the challenges it would face. Her relationship with Edward reveals a partnership built on mutual respect and shared purpose. While he pursued military glory, she grounded their rule in stability and care for the people. Their partnership created a sense of unity that strengthened the crown. She supported him through triumphs and setbacks, and he relied on her judgment in matters that required sensitivity and foresight. Their companionship added depth to the political life of the kingdom, creating a model of partnership that balanced ambition with compassion. Philippa's popularity among the people of England became one of her defining characteristics. Her kindness, accessibility, and willingness to engage with those outside the highest circles of power made her beloved. She responded to petitions, supported charitable works, and intervened on behalf of those who faced hardship. Her gestures were remembered because they reflected consistent patterns of behavior rather than isolated moments. Her connection with the people strengthened the legitimacy of the crown and helped ease the pressures caused by war, taxation, and political change. Her final years revealed the deep affection the kingdom felt for her. Even as her health declined, she remained committed to charitable work and continued to support the institutions she had helped build. Her passing brought widespread mourning. Chroniclers noted the loss with genuine sorrow, describing her as a figure whose presence had brought peace and stability. Her memory lived on through the foundations she supported, the economic growth she encouraged, and the acts of mercy that shaped her reputation. Her legacy extends beyond the events of her lifetime. She offers a model of queenship grounded in humanity, economic insight, and political steadiness. She reveals how influence can operate through patience, compassion, and practical skill. She shows that power need not be loud to be effective. Her contributions shaped the development of commerce, strengthened diplomatic ties, and offered a form of moral leadership that balanced the ambitions of a militaristic reign. By understanding her influence, we gain a richer sense of how the kingdom evolved during a period of conflict and growth. Her life also enriches the broader theme that has guided this exploration of overlooked consorts. From Matilda of Flanders to Eleanor of Provence and now to Philippa of Hainault, each woman shaped England in ways that reached far beyond the private sphere. Their influence did not rest on battles or dramatic displays. It rested on intelligence, cultural insight, administrative skill, and moral clarity. Philippa's story reinforces the idea that the shaping of a realm depends on those who work with quiet steadiness as much as on those whose names are recorded in military chronicles. Her presence in the developing kingdom offers a reminder that compassion and economic understanding can strengthen a realm as powerfully as any triumph in war. She reveals how mercy can build trust, how patronage can spark growth, and how diplomacy can prevent discord from overtaking a nation. Her life brings forward the truth that leadership, in its fullest form, relies on the steady work of individuals who understand the needs of the people and the future of the kingdom. In continuing this long narrative of consorts who shaped England, Philippa of Hainault stands as a central figure whose influence deserves careful attention. Her story deepens our understanding of how the kingdom grew, endured, and transformed. She remains a testament to the lasting power of compassion, the importance of economic foresight, and the strength of a steady spirit in a world shaped by conflict and change. Caroline of Ansbach enters this unfolding story as the next figure whose work shaped the crown in ways that outlasted her lifetime, even though public memory often focused on the men beside her. Her world followed the era of Philippa of Hainault by several centuries, yet she inherited the same challenge faced by many consorts before her: how to guide a realm without appearing to dominate it, how to support a king whose priorities did not always match her own, and how to plant ideas that would flourish long after her voice fell silent. Where Philippa used compassion, diplomacy, and economic insight to steady a medieval kingdom shaped by conflict, Caroline lived at a moment when England was moving into a new intellectual age. Scholars, scientists, and thinkers were asking new questions about the universe, the mind, and the nature of knowledge. In this shifting landscape, she became one of the most influential royal patrons of inquiry, reason, and learning. Her story builds naturally on the long tradition of consorts who shaped the crown through partnership, foresight, and committed service. Caroline grew up in a principality known for its culture, scholarship, and steady governance. Her early years were shaped by tutors who understood the value of reason, clarity, and inquiry. She read widely, studied philosophy, and learned from some of the most respected thinkers of her time. This environment created habits of mind that stayed with her for life. She developed a rare skill for combining intellectual curiosity with practical judgment. These qualities would later influence her role as a consort in a kingdom undergoing political evolution, social change, and expanding scientific study. Her education taught her that rulers needed more than military strength or public ceremony. They required the ability to understand ideas, build connections, and foster environments where new knowledge could thrive. Her entry into the English royal family came at a moment of transition. The crown had shifted to a new dynasty that faced both suspicion and opportunity. Many in the kingdom still felt uneasy about the recent changes in succession, and the new rulers needed to build trust with the people. Caroline recognized early that stability depended not only on political alliances but also on the ability to present the monarchy as a thoughtful, engaged, and forward-looking institution. She understood that influence grew strongest when it rested on respect rather than fear, and she recognized that learning and inquiry could enhance the crown's reputation. These ideas guided her approach as she entered a court where expectations for a consort were often narrow, yet the possibility for meaningful contribution remained wide for anyone with insight and patience. Her marriage to the future George brought her into a partnership defined by contrast. He was direct, often impatient, and focused on immediate matters. She offered careful thinking, calm reasoning, and a capacity to see how choices made in the present would shape the future. Their personalities differed, but those differences made their partnership effective. She learned how to approach him in ways that allowed discussion without confrontation. She framed her counsel in practical terms, offered clear explanations for her views, and respected his need to feel decisive. Over time, he came to rely on her judgment, especially in matters involving appointments, negotiations, and the management of court factions. Their partnership showed once more that a consort's influence did not need to appear dramatic to be powerful. Her intellectual pursuits shaped the court in ways that moved beyond private study. Caroline recognized that ideas could strengthen the monarchy by creating a climate of respect and curiosity around it. She welcomed scholars, supported scientists, and encouraged discussions among thinkers who were shaping the Enlightenment. Her patronage offered them a platform, and her interest in their work signaled to the kingdom that learning mattered at the highest level of leadership. This support helped turn the court into a center of inquiry where new theories, discoveries, and arguments could gain an audience. She worked with men who studied natural philosophy, moral philosophy, and emerging ideas about human reason. Her willingness to engage with these topics made her unusual among European consorts of her time and positioned England as a kingdom that valued the pursuit of truth. Her engagement with religious thinkers added another layer to her influence. The period saw intense debate about belief, doctrine, and the role of the Church in public life. Caroline approached these matters with a calm mind. She sought conversations with theologians who valued reason and inquiry, and she offered encouragement to those who believed in a more inclusive and thoughtful form of religious engagement. Her efforts did not promote division. Instead, she focused on creating space for dialogue. Her approach helped reduce tension between competing groups and encouraged a climate where matters of belief could be discussed without fear or hostility. This steady influence rested on the same qualities that guided her support for science and philosophy: patience, clarity, and a desire to understand the deeper causes of conflict. Her influence on the political life of the kingdom became increasingly clear as she grew more established in her role. She had a talent for recognizing potential in individuals. She understood which ministers possessed not only ambition but also sound judgment. She recommended appointments, supported rising figures, and helped retain those whose steady leadership benefited the realm. Her guidance allowed the king to make informed decisions, and she often acted as a bridge between factions whose disputes threatened to weaken the crown's authority. Her method relied on conversation, careful listening, and the ability to weigh competing interests without losing sight of the broader needs of the kingdom. This skill made her indispensable during moments of political uncertainty. Caroline's approach to power avoided public displays. She understood that overt authority could invite resentment or suspicion. Instead, she shaped outcomes through quiet conversation, thoughtful recommendations, and a deep understanding of each political figure's motivations. Ministers understood that speaking with her could clarify the king's thinking, ease tensions, or help resolve disagreements. Her ability to mediate without appearing to dominate helped stabilize the court during periods of unrest. Her conversations with influential ministers became an essential part of governance. Over time, this created a dynamic in which she effectively acted as a partner in rule, not through title but through consistent and trusted engagement. Her influence also extended to the shaping of public perception. She understood that a monarchy needed to appear accessible and caring to maintain the respect of the people. She visited hospitals, supported charitable foundations, and encouraged improvements in public health and education. Her patronage of medical study helped support early efforts to understand disease, improve care, and increase access to treatment. She funded projects that promoted the spread of knowledge, often focusing on those that could benefit ordinary citizens. These acts reflected her belief that a kingdom grew strong when it invested in the minds and welfare of its people. Her support for the arts contributed to a cultural landscape that became increasingly rich and vibrant. She encouraged painters, writers, architects, and musicians whose work shaped the artistic identity of the age. The projects she supported contributed to buildings, performances, and collections that strengthened the kingdom's cultural heritage. Her approach to patronage focused on quality, growth, and the idea that beauty and learning could work together. She believed that the arts enriched the spirit of the nation and offered insights into human experience that could not be gained through politics alone. Under her patronage, the court offered artists opportunities to work, experiment, and engage in dialogue with the scholars and thinkers she brought to the center of royal life. Her interest in science extended beyond intellectual curiosity. She engaged directly with researchers, asked thoughtful questions, and followed their work with genuine enthusiasm. She supported projects that explored astronomy, physics, and natural history. She believed that understanding the natural world revealed truths that could help humanity grow more grounded, thoughtful, and logical. Her support offered scientists resources and recognition at a time when they depended heavily on patronage. This contributed to an environment where scientific inquiry flourished and where England could take a leading role in shaping new ideas about the universe. Caroline also shaped the monarchy itself by moderating its public image. She recognized that the role of the crown needed to evolve in response to the changing expectations of the people. She encouraged a more pragmatic approach to ceremonial life, one that preserved tradition while focusing on clarity, accessibility, and purpose. She helped create a model of monarchy that engaged with learning, supported public welfare, and acted as a guardian of culture. Her influence helped shift the crown away from older models of absolute authority and toward a more modern form that balanced tradition with reason. Her partnership with the king reveals how effective a consort could be when allowed to participate fully in public life. George relied on her for guidance, often admitting that her judgment exceeded his in matters that required patience and careful thought. Their discussions shaped policies, appointments, and decisions. Her influence helped the crown navigate political challenges that might have weakened a less stable partnership. Even when they disagreed, their mutual respect sustained the strength of the monarchy. Her children benefited from her commitment to education and moral development. She believed they should grow up with a firm grounding in reason, responsibility, and cultural understanding. Her guidance helped shape their outlook, preparing them to step into public life with a sense of duty and awareness of the intellectual currents of the age. Her household became a center of learning where scholars, artists, and thinkers found welcome. Her children grew up in an environment marked by thoughtful conversation, exposure to new ideas, and a respect for inquiry. Caroline's final years reveal the depth of her commitment to the kingdom. Even as her health declined, she continued to engage in matters of governance, culture, and scholarship. She refused to withdraw from the responsibilities she had carried for so long. Her passing left a void that was felt across the kingdom. Scholars mourned the loss of a patron who understood the value of their work. Ministers remembered a counselor who balanced firmness with understanding. The people recalled a figure whose presence at public events brought comfort and reassurance. Her memory endured in the institutions she supported, the ideas she encouraged, and the cultural developments she helped set in motion. Her legacy extends beyond the achievements of her lifetime. She stands as a figure who represents the intellectual side of monarchy, demonstrating how ideas and reason can shape governance. She showed that knowledge strengthens leadership and that a ruler gains authority by engaging with the world of thought. Her work laid a foundation for future consorts who would support learning, culture, and scientific inquiry. Her influence helped the crown transition into a new age where understanding, analysis, and communication became essential tools of leadership. Caroline's place in the long narrative of overlooked consorts reinforces the recurring truth that queens often shaped the kingdom not through battlefield command, but through intellect, diplomacy, and a steady sense of responsibility. Her story continues the theme that emerged with Matilda of Flanders, deepened with Eleanor of Provence, strengthened with Philippa of Hainault, and carried now into an age of reason and inquiry. Each woman contributed to the evolution of the crown in ways that reflected the needs of their time. Caroline stands as the figure who brought the Enlightenment into the heart of the monarchy, blending learning with governance and helping the realm grow intellectually as well as politically. Her influence reminds us that the shaping of a nation depends not only on kings whose deeds fill the pages of official histories, but also on consorts whose insight guides decisions behind the scenes. Caroline's engagement with thinkers, her encouragement of scientific study, her steady counsel to the king, and her belief in the importance of knowledge created a legacy that helped redefine what it meant to serve as a partner in rule. She demonstrated that leadership also means fostering environments where ideas can grow and where the future can be shaped by reason rather than by conflict alone. In this way, Caroline of Ansbach stands firmly within the tradition of consorts who shaped England through wisdom, care, and unwavering dedication. Her life deepens our understanding of how the crown evolved during a time of intellectual transformation. She remains a figure whose contributions deserve remembrance and study, not as a shadow behind a king but as a central influence in the unfolding story of a nation shaped by both thought and action. The long path through the lives of Matilda of Flanders, Eleanor of Provence, Philippa of Hainault, and Caroline of Ansbach has shown how deeply the English monarchy was shaped by voices that official histories often overlook. Their stories formed a continuous thread that linked medieval courts, shifting dynasties, vast cultural changes, and the growth of new political ideas. Each woman lived in a different age with different pressures, but together they reveal a consistent truth. Power within a kingdom was never held by one figure alone. It flowed through partnerships, counsel, cultural influence, and the steady work of shaping institutions that outlasted individual reigns. As this journey draws together, their shared legacy forms a wider picture of monarchy and nation, one in which the role of a consort was never secondary but always essential. The reflection begins with Matilda of Flanders, whose role in the early Norman kingdom showed how strength, insight, and administrative skill helped support a monarch remembered for conquest rather than governance. She worked within a world shaped by transition. The land experienced deep change as new rulers replaced old structures. Her ability to act as regent, stabilize regions, and cultivate loyalty laid foundations that allowed the developing realm to function with a degree of order during a turbulent time. Her influence did not depend on spectacle. It rested on judgment and a steady presence that made her indispensable while history placed its eyes on her husband's triumphs. From there, the story passed to Eleanor of Provence, a figure whose world was marked by cultural richness and political unrest. She helped bring French influence into the English court, shaping taste, architecture, and learning. Her patronage encouraged growth in the arts while her diplomatic instincts helped maintain fragile alliances. She faced rebellion and division, yet her ability to navigate threats gave the crown a sense of continuity during her husband's unpredictable reign. She balanced loyalty to her family with commitment to her adopted kingdom, proving that cultural insight and political caution could strengthen a monarchy as effectively as armies or treaties. Philippa of Hainault carried this narrative into the era of long conflict abroad and social change at home. Her influence emerged from compassion, economic understanding, and a calm sense of responsibility. She encouraged the wool trade, supported towns, and helped build economic networks that shaped the kingdom's financial future. Her acts of mercy softened the harshness of war and created bonds of trust with communities touched by conflict. She helped maintain order when the king was away for campaigns, showing again that a consort could govern with steady skill. Her popularity reflected qualities that rarely appear in chronicles of battles, yet often determine whether a kingdom prospers or fractures. This path finally led to Caroline of Ansbach, who brought the spirit of inquiry and learning into the heart of the monarchy during a period of intellectual change. Her support for scholars, scientists, and theologians helped shape an environment where ideas could grow. Her counsel guided complex political choices. Her influence on appointments and policy helped maintain stability in a dynasty still securing its place. She reshaped public perception of the crown by supporting learning, charity, and rational engagement with the world. Her quiet partnership with the king demonstrated how intellectual insight could guide governance without challenging the balance of power. She prepared the monarchy for a modern age by showing that knowledge could serve as a foundation for authority. With these women in mind, the broader picture becomes clear. Their stories do not sit on the margins of history. They form a central part of how the English monarchy survived, adapted, and evolved. Each contributed in ways that shaped the crown's identity. They strengthened institutions, steadied rulers, built alliances, and nurtured the cultural and intellectual growth of their ages. Their influence challenges the idea that kings acted alone or that consorts played only symbolic roles. They reveal how the monarchy depended on partnership. They demonstrate that the crown's strength rested not only on conquest or legal authority but on the dedication, intelligence, and resilience of those who worked behind the scenes. These stories also encourage a deeper reflection on the nature of history itself. Traditional records often highlighted dramatic events, military victories, and direct political actions. Quiet forms of influence received less attention. Yet the work of these consorts shaped the character of the kingdom. Their choices guided rulers whose names are written in large letters across history books. Their support ensured that governments continued to function during moments of crisis. Their patronage helped build cultural legacies that define English identity even today. By exploring their lives, we uncover a more complete picture of how societies develop and how nations endure. Their stories also remind us that influence often takes forms that are easily overlooked. A calm word at the right moment can shift a decision. A recommendation for a minister can alter the future of a government. A gesture of mercy can build peace between former enemies. A commitment to learning can guide a kingdom toward progress. Through these subtler forms of action, these women shaped the direction of English history. They did not need to command armies or draft laws to leave a deep imprint. They simply needed to use the strengths available to them and apply them with insight and purpose. These reflections challenge the modern reader to reconsider what power looks like. It can exist in decisions made behind closed doors, in conversations that bridge divides, and in efforts to cultivate understanding. Matilda, Eleanor, Philippa, and Caroline each reveal that leadership depends on qualities that do not always draw attention. These include patience, clarity, foresight, and a willingness to act for the wider good rather than personal gain. Their stories show that history is shaped as much by those who use influence with care as by those who wield authority with force. Their collective legacy also reshapes our understanding of monarchy. It was not a rigid structure where only one figure held real influence. It was a partnership that relied on balance and mutual support. These consorts used their roles to protect the stability of the realm, encourage cultural growth, and strengthen the moral foundations of leadership. They reveal that the crown was not merely a symbol of authority, but a living institution shaped by many hands. Another insight emerges from this journey. The ability of these women to influence the kingdom depended on their ability to interpret their times. Matilda worked within a newly conquered land and helped stabilize it. Eleanor navigated a court divided by competing loyalties. Philippa worked during a long foreign conflict and helped maintain internal harmony. Caroline lived in an age of reason and helped bring learning into the heart of governance. Each adapted her strengths to the needs of her age. This capacity for adaptation offers a reminder that influence grows strongest when it responds to present conditions rather than clinging to outdated practices. Their lives also underline the importance of cultural exchange. Matilda of Flanders brought administrative insight shaped by Norman traditions. Eleanor of Provence introduced new artistic and architectural tastes. Philippa of Hainault strengthened commercial ties with European markets. Caroline of Ansbach supported ideas that connected England to intellectual movements across the continent. Through these contributions, the monarchy became richer, more vibrant, and more connected to the wider world. Reflecting on their stories invites a reassessment of how we construct historical memory. These women played essential roles, yet their contributions were often reduced to footnotes or overshadowed by the achievements of kings. By focusing on their work, we gain a more accurate understanding of how power functioned within the kingdom. Their stories reveal that influence often operates quietly, shaping events from behind curtains rather than from throne rooms or battlefields. They remind us that meaningful contribution does not always announce itself with noise. It reveals itself in the longevity of institutions, the endurance of cultural traditions, and the growth of ideas that span generations. As we draw this exploration together, the true significance of these consorts becomes clear. They were not passive figures. They were not merely companions or decorative symbols. They were partners in leadership whose insight, courage, and skill helped shape the direction of a kingdom. Their stories offer lessons about responsibility, resilience, and the many forms that influence can take. They encourage us to look beyond familiar narratives and consider the forces that operate quietly yet powerfully within the structures of history. Their lives continue to speak to present-day audiences. They remind us that leadership depends on cooperation, that cultural and intellectual growth strengthens societies, and that compassion can support stability in times of hardship. They show that wisdom often emerges from conversations, learning, and the willingness to see beyond immediate concerns. These lessons remain relevant as long as societies seek to balance tradition with progress and authority with understanding. This journey across centuries reveals that true influence often comes from those who use their position to build, guide, and inspire. Matilda, Eleanor, Philippa, and Caroline each carried this responsibility with a sense of purpose shaped by the needs of their time. Their contributions challenge us to recognize the importance of voices that history sometimes overlooks. Their stories enrich our understanding of the past and remind us that the shaping of a nation is rarely the work of one ruler alone. It is the work of many thinkers, partners, counselors, and creators whose efforts form the foundation upon which societies stand. Now that their stories have unfolded, one question remains. Which overlooked queen surprised you the most?